Hello and welcome to Lecture 3 in the Inform Africa Toolathon series. In this session, we'll introduce some fundamental concepts of human mobility, concepts that form the foundation for modeling and understanding how people move across space and time. These ideas are essential for linking mobility patterns to public health outcomes, particularly in the context of epidemic spread. This lecture is part of the Inform Africa project, which focuses on the role of data streams in understanding infection dynamics across the African continent. Inform Africa is supported by the NIH-funded DSI Africa program. We are speaking from Villanova University's Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. I am Dr. Xin Wu, a research scientist, and I'm joined by Dr. Chenfeng Xiong, assistant professor and principal investigator for Project 2 in this initiative. Let's get started. In this video, we'll walk through 4 key topics. First, we'll introduce what location-based services, or LBS data, actually are. Then, we'll explore how to identify individual trips and tours from this type of data. Next, we'll compare 2 LBS-based data products, the aggregated trip dataset and the trip roster dataset, which captures more detailed person-level mobility. Finally, we'll show you how to download and explore these datasets on your own. Let's take a moment to review what we mean by LBS data, or location-based services data. This type of data is passively collected from mobile devices using technologies like GPS or cellular signals. It doesn't require any user interaction, but it provides incredibly rich insights into human mobility patterns at scale. Each location sighting captures a moment in time when a device was detected. It typically includes an anonymized device ID, latitude, and longitude, often encoded using geohash, a grid-based spatial index. In our case, usually geohash 6 or geohash 7 for privacy-aware resolution, a timestamp. To protect user privacy, both timestamp and location accuracy are sometimes fuzzed or generalized. By aggregating millions of these sightings, we can reconstruct how people move throughout the day. On the right, we see a time series of LBS data from Nigeria in early 2020. As you can see, both the number of daily trips and distance traveled dropped sharply after lockdowns, a clear sign of how LBS data can detect behavioral shifts in real time. After collecting raw location sightings from mobile devices, we go through several key steps to extract meaningful mobility patterns. First, in the sighting data panel, we gather anonymized observations for each individual. These are time-stamped GPS points recorded throughout the day. Then comes data pre-processing. This includes evaluating data quality, identifying key anchors like home and workplace, and removing duplicate sightings from the same device. We also integrate multiple signals from the same person to create a clean movement profile. Next, in the mobility identification stage, we reconstruct trips and tours. We will introduce the 2 concepts later. We calculate daily mobility measures like trips per person and total distance traveled. Finally, these metrics are aggregated geographically, as shown here for Nigeria, to support applications in public health and transportation planning. Our team provides 2 fundamental data sets derived from LBS data. First is the aggregated trip dataset. This captures the total number of trips between predefined geographic units, like LGAs, counties, or states, over a certain time period. It doesn't track individual users, but it summarizes movement patterns between zones. This kind of data is very similar to the origin-destination matrices commonly used in transportation planning. The second product is the trip roster dataset. This contains anonymized person-level trip records showing when and where individuals traveled throughout the day. Each record includes a time-stamped sequence of locations, allowing us to reconstruct full travel tours, while still preserving user privacy. Together, these 2 datasets give us both macro-level movement flows and micro-level mobility behavior, making them valuable tools for research in public health. Let's now take a closer look at aggregated trip data, starting with how we measure trip production and attraction. We begin with trip generation, which estimates the total number of trips originating from or destined to different zones over a given time period. This is the first step in the classic four-step travel demand modeling process. More specifically, trip production counts how many trips begin in a zone, usually from residential areas where people live and start their day. In contrast, trip attraction counts how many trips end in a zone, typically places like workplaces, schools, or commercial centers. The maps here show trip production across Nigeria in 2020 based on mobile phone location data. Darker red areas have higher trip activity, giving us a spatial view of where people are starting and ending their trips. In addition to trip production and attraction, we also analyze trip distribution, which answers the question, where do people go once they leave a certain area? Trip distribution connects trip origins and destinations across zones. It's often modeled using tools like the gravity model, which assumes that travel volume depends on the size of the zones and the distance between them. To organize this information, we use what's called an origin destination matrix, or OD matrix. Each row represents an origin, each column a destination, and each cell shows how many trips were made between that pair. On the right, you can see daily trip flows from Lagos to other states in Nigeria based on LBS data from 2020. Now let's turn to the second type of dataset, trip roster data. Trip roster data is a time-ordered collection of anonymized travel records reconstructed from mobile phone signals. Unlike aggregated data, this captures person-level travel behavior, allowing us to identify complete tours. A tour is a full round trip that begins and ends at the same anchor point, usually a person's home. It may include multiple destinations or activities along the way. Each tour has two half tours, the outbound half going from home to the main destination, like work, and the inbound half returning home. People may also make intermediate stops, like stopping at a shop or coffee place. Sometimes a person may make a sub-tour, for example, leaving work to grab lunch and returning, all within their main tour. This type of detailed data helps us reconstruct how individuals move through space and time with high granularity. Now let's take a look at the structure of the trip roster dataset. Each row in this dataset represents one segment of a person's trip, built from sequences of location sightings. Each sighting includes an anonymized device identifier, a geohash 7 location, which encodes geographic coordinates into grid cells to protect privacy, and a timestamp indicating the time of movement. On the right, we see a snapshot of the trip roster data dictionary. It includes variables like trip start time, trip distance, origin and destination coordinates, place names, and even operational day types. On the left, we see a spatial visualization of anonymized individual trips, here shown over South Africa. To explore the data yourself, you can visit the Human Mobility Data Hub, a public GitHub repository created for the Inform Africa team and its collaborators. This platform provides open access to high-quality mobility datasets from both South Africa and Nigeria. On the right, you can see the homepage of the GitHub repository. It includes a detailed README file with background information, citation guidance, and links to individual data folders. To access the repository, simply visit the GitHub link. Thank you for watching this lecture on human mobility data and its applications. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Please visit our website at inform-africa.org, subscribe to our video channel, and feel free to contact us by email. See you in next video.